Hey everybody. Um, Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the philosophy of mind. What the philosophy of mind is, according to Western philosophy, it is the study of the mind-body dualism that we appear to have. And what that is basically a split between the mental realm and the physical realm. The problem, as they call it, is in the fact that matter, when you look at it, isn't conscious. There's nothing about it that's self-aware, intelligent. There's nothing about it that seems to correlate with our experience, our inner experience, no matter where you go. Um, no matter what rock you overturn, no matter where you look in the cosmos, there's something strange about life and about specifically human life, human awareness, that other pieces of matter don't seem to have. Yet somehow the arrangement of our matter is enough to create this mental property. Um, and this is the problem. They don't know how to connect the physical realm to this awareness that we seem to have. How did that even arise? Um, Now, the problem I have with this philosophy is that it doesn't. The way I've explained it, it in a way makes sense. I mean, we don't understand what this mental realm, this physical realm is, and how consciousness arises. That's a problem no matter what philosophy you believe in. It's a scientific problem. But they seem to assume that since there is no consciousness in a rock, um, or in any kind of matter alone, or for that matter, in our bodies, we can't seem to find this I-ness in the body. It just seems to be all matter. The mystery is this awareness. Um, because of this, I guess I can understand where they're coming from there, but nevertheless, we are connected somehow. I mean, if I want to move my arm and pick up this Welch's grape juice, there you go. I've done it, and there's a physical mental correlation right there. Um, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Searle has been saying the same thing. He wrote a lot of stuff about the philosophy of mind, and he has the same kind of problem with these dualistic theories about mind body. What basically happened in the philosophy of mind body is that people developed philosophies of mind and philosophies of body, the physical realm and the mental realm. They separated. They said they're two distinct um, universes, one which can be applied, one which metaphysics can be applied, and two which physics can be applied. And it seemed to kind of neatly work out like that, A or B. But as we were learning more about this, we were kind of noticing this may not actually be true at all. This split. In fact, there are two main theories, and I'm learning this in my philosophy class. Um, Monism and dualism, and apparently today monism is the most dominant aspect of philosophy that a lot of philosophers tend to believe in, and scientists for that matter. Monism is it basically says, well, no, there isn't really a mind-body split. Everything is physics. Everything is the physical universe, and eventually we're going to understand consciousness that way. And people take varying degrees of it. Some people take absurd degrees of it to the point where they say there's nothing good of the mental realm at all, not even psychology, and we should just focus solely on physics. That's the language of everything, and somehow I can't see that working out practically, or really beneficially, because we have an inner experience that can't simply be wiped away. But um, we monism basically says the universe is only physical. Consciousness arises out of this physical nature somehow. It's not necessarily distinct. Some groups say it emerges from the physical universe, but it can't be reduced to the physical universe. And that kind of it makes sense to a degree because it reminds me of um, holism, holistic theories, how things evolve slowly over time, and eventually you get more and more complex layers of development. For instance, a galaxy can't be reduced to its solar systems. And I really think the problem in philosophy is not that there is a mind-body split as much as there is a top-bottom approach, if that makes sense. We're trying to analyze things as if we are on the top of the universe and we're looking down into it, and we're seeing the sum of its parts, and we're not understanding how anything really arises, except for the nature that the sum of this part with this part equals this. But for some reason, consciousness doesn't add up. No matter how many parts you add up in this equation, it doesn't seem to come together. I believe in order to understand consciousness, you at least have to be open to the holistic theory, where consciousness actually emerges out of the physical realm through a form of evolution and through a form of development, just as galaxies arise from the solar systems that they're made out of, the solar systems, the black holes, the nebulae, all that fun stuff. And a galaxy is not a sum of its parts. It's a particular arrangement. It's the way things begin to work out. It is essentially the relationship once things become more and more interconnected. And I think life has something to do with this as an analogy. Um, we are not the sum of our parts, obviously. It's much more complex than that. It's not 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3, which is life. Obviously, we're trying to add up a bunch of... trying to add up numbers it's as illogical as saying 5 plus 5 equals an orange. We're trying to figure out how that equation is going to work. We're trying to bring those two together, mind, body, how these things. But I think setting it up like that, it is itself an error of judgment. Again, seeing it incorrectly from the top down. If you look bottom up, we start with the relationships in the universe. We start with how things are interconnected and interwoven, and maybe we'll create better models of understanding the universe that way too. Just like in quantum physics, there were many different grand theories, but they were at least able to unify to a very significant degree when in string theory they said, well, all of these grand theories are actually part of the same theory, but they're different, let's say, strings and potentials of the same theory. Almost like a spectrum of quantum mechanics. But it gets much more complex than that, but all I'm saying is that perhaps there is a spectrum of development and consciousness that we're really a part of, that is interdependent and interwoven. And if ecosystems and even the way the universe appears from a distance as this big net or mesh is anything to do with anything, and if this can shine any light on our problems, then maybe we should be looking more at relationship and the space between the variables, because maybe the space between the variables is the most important part. Maybe if we see how everything's interwoven, we unlock the big mysteries. And so anyway, that's my take on all of this. I'm trying to remember. Someone brought up a good example of why this is Western philosophy has a history of asking the wrong questions. The problem with dichotomy, and as great as logical analysis is, and as important as important it is to modern mathematics, and basically understanding things, whether or not they're true or false, is imagine this dichotomy of mind and body as an inherent error of judgment. Imagine that it is equivalent to asking whether or not the number 4 is a bachelor. I mean, how do you go about answering this? The number 4, bachelor? Well, first you have to describe the number 4 isn't a bachelor. So then the person asks, oh, well, he's not a bachelor. Well, then he must be married. Neither of these things are true. This is the wrong, completely irrelevant way of looking at things. And I think eventually we'll be growing out of it. And that's it for this video. Feel free to make a comment or rant or whatever you would like.